Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? Hope you're having a good day, blessed day. I know some of you are surprised to see snow on the ground these last few days, but anyway, just hope you can make do with the weather and deal with it appropriately. I mean, we have more pressing things on our minds we should have than the weather. And of course, helping people get to heaven should be one of our top priorities because that is our job. If we're Christians, that is our job. And if you're not a Christian, you got to realize when you do become a Christian, if you do, that's going to be your job, is to help people get to heaven. And so that's what we want to encourage as many people as we can to do and expand the Master's holdings, expand his kingdom. And so we're going to talk about the parable of the unfaithful steward. And we read this in Luke 16, 1 through 13. And of course, there's several reasons that Jesus spoke to the people by parables. And first, a parable is a story that draws upon things that are known or seen to make an application of those things that are not yet seen. In the case of Jesus, he was talking about heaven and the spiritual realm. And so the parables have an application for us if we do several things. We got to lay aside our pride and our greed so as to benefit by these parables, and that'll help us benefit eternally. Now, the reading in Luke 16, beginning verse 1, and then we'll go back and look at several pertinent verses. It says, "Now he was also saying to the disciples, there was a certain rich man who had a steward, and this steward was reported to him as squandering his possessions. And he called him and said to him, what is this I hear about you? Give an account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be steward. And the steward said to himself, what shall I do, since my master is taking the stewardship away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, I am ashamed to beg. I know what I shall do, so that when I am removed from the stewardship, they will receive me into their homes. And he summoned each one of his master's debtors, and he began saying to the first, how much do you owe my master? And he said, 100 measures of oil. And he said to him, take your bill, sit down and quickly and write 50. Then he said to another, and how much do you owe? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. He said to him, take your bill and write 80. And his master praised the unrighteous steward because he had acted shrewdly, for the sons of this age are more shrewd in relation to their own kind than the sons of light. And I say to you, make friends for yourselves by means of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings. Now he who is faithful in a very little thing is faithful also in much. And he who is unrighteous in a very little thing is unrighteous also in much. If therefore you have not been faithful in the use of unrighteous mammon, who will entrust the true riches to you? And if you have been faithful in the use of that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own? So he says, no servant can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. So that's it. And so that's the parable. And we're going to look at these. We're going to pick out a few verses here and talk about that. See, in verse 1, he was saying to his disciples, there was a certain man who had a steward, and this steward was reported to him as squandering his possessions. All right, now, though Jesus was speaking to his disciples, we see in verse 14 that this was a public discourse. I mean, the Pharisees were listening in on this. And really, they were the beneficiaries of this message because it really spoke to them. And so it was meant to speak to their greed and their pride. And still, there's lessons for us to consider. See, we all have possessions, and some have more possessions than others. But what we usually fail to realize is that nothing really belongs to us. It belongs to God. God has everything. We just have the privilege of using just a small portion of these things. And this should remind us of the great prayer of David right before he died. He prayed to the Lord, says, Lord, we know you own everything, but we are so glad and that we are privileged to offer you these blessings. I mean the material for the construction of the temple and the money he put in towards the temple and all that. And so David acknowledged God owns everything. He doesn't need anything. But if he's going to privilege us with having possessions, then we should be honored to be able to share those possessions with God. All right, so our possessions, we know, are only temporary loan, and it belongs to God. And so we should use them wisely, and we definitely know we're not going to take these possessions with us, so we just use them for the span of our lifetime. But we are taught that we should be wise in our usage of God's possessions. And we do have responsibility to take care of our personal affairs. I mean, if we owe someone money, we need to pay it back. And if one has a family, they have a greater responsibility to take care of their family, make sure their family is provided for and taken care of. And in a sense, every one of us is a child of God in the fact that we are human. And we are all his children in that sense. And each human is held responsible for how they behave and act in this world. Everyone's going to stand before God and give an account of their actions and the way they live. So God put us on this planet to use its resources. He gave us everything we need and not necessarily everything we want. And so if we do good with what God has allowed us to use, we will benefit the world and hopefully leave it in a better condition. And we not only need to show respect for God and pay attention to him, but we must learn how to get along in this world so that we can survive without being a burden upon others. See, Paul spoke of his stewardship of the manifold grace of God in Ephesians 3 and verse 2. And in a sense, we who are Christians are also have this stewardship. Our duty, our responsibility is to share the gospel message, to make the message of God known to as many people as possible. In verse 2, and he called him and said to him, what is this I hear about you? Give me an account of your stewardship, for you can no longer be steward. So it's pretty much, okay, bring your books and show me what you've done, and because you're going to be fired. Let's just put it that way. You're going to lose your job. And so we learned that the steward has not been doing his job. It was because he was lazy, and just how well are lazy employees treated. Think about that. I mean, usually if they have a choice, they're the first to go. I mean, people who pay money for work to be done do not like lazy people. It's just that obvious. And figure this out. Are lazy people ever promoted? I mean, chances are they are not. And so the master had high expectations of this steward. Otherwise, he would not have given him that responsibility. But now, this master has reason to be disappointed. You know, God sees potential in each of us. Think about that, folks. God's given each of us an ability to think and to talk and to be able to communicate with others. And so our responsibility is to share his message with others. Now, are we going to do that, or are we going to keep it to ourselves and do nothing? So, when you think of it that way, have you given him reason to be disappointed in you? And yes, it's going to take some reflection, some inward thinking, and some self-examination. Have I been sharing the gospel message with the people that I deal with on a daily basis? Do the people I deal with know that I'm a Christian? Do they know where I go to church? And do I talk about how great and wonderful the church is? I mean, these are questions you're going to have to ask yourself. And then ask yourself, have you given God reason to be disappointed in you? All right, so as we continue in our parable, we find out, what did the steward do? And so apparently he took the master's holdings, and that some of them he possibly had embezzled or misapplied them. And perhaps he was just lazy and careless that he caused his master to lose a good portion of wealth. So, in many ways, we are no different. And so, like I say, have you done anything to increase the master's holdings? Have you helped people to expand the master's kingdom? I mean, that's just questions we have to ask ourselves, and that's why this parable is relative to us. All right, verse 3. And the steward said to himself, what shall I do, since my master has taken the stewardship away from me? I am not strong enough to dig, and I am ashamed to beg. All right, so really, when he says this, it's not like he promoted one of his slaves to be steward, but it's kind of like he hired an outside person to come in and do a stewardship for him. It's what it sounds like, because otherwise he'd just remove the stewardship and put him in the fields to work. So, but this is what he's saying: I'm not strong enough to dig. I can't go and be somebody's servant, and I'm ashamed to beg. Or he says, I may have too much pride. See, hearing that he soon might be fired, he devised a plan so that others will seek to show him compassion. I mean, it is not that this steward was weak or elderly. I mean, we gather that from the writing. The truth of the matter is that he did not want to do any heavy labor. He didn't want to work. He was lazy. And he said it was beneath his dignity to beg because he had a lot of pride. Yet we sometimes figure out that if he could survive simply by begging, he would choose that course of action. You know, many people in this world are of such thinking, and we sometimes get upset when we hear about people who are taking money from others just to survive, and they're not willing to contribute to society. It's kind of frustrating to see that the government allows that to take place. But anyway, what it becomes is a burden or inconvenience to others. And so we really don't want to do that, but sometimes it becomes necessary. So he came up with a plan. And so here's what this steward did. There were several who owed the master a great sum of money or goods, and the steward proceeds to make their burden light. So here's probably his thinking. In turn, he expects that when he does lose his job, one of these will owe him the favor and provide some place for him to live. I mean, that's in his thinking. That's in his mind. And you can understand that. I mean, you save someone a lot of money, they just might be willing to show a little compassion towards you. All right, so later on, after all this happens, see, here's what happens. The master praised the unrighteous steward because he had acted shrewdly. For the sons of this age are more shrewd in relation to their own kind than the sons of light. See, the point is, the master saw the quick thinking potential and wondered, now, why the servant did not treat his job just as shrewdly. See, God's going to be wondering. He sees how we act and behave among people of this world. He says, why can't you apply that same effort in expanding my holdings, in expanding my kingdom? See, the people of the world find a way to appease other people in the world to get whatever they want. And whether it's legal or not in some cases. And they will act shrewdly, cunningly, deceptively, or whatever it takes. And some people will do that. And people in this world do not treat Christians very kindly unless it's a means to get something out of them. And that's usually how the world operates. So people of the world already expect the deception, the shrewdness out of other people in this world. I mean, that's what you expect. And Christians, if they're faithful to God, are usually kinder and deal with others honestly. And that is a rare thing in our society today, finding an honest person. Every now and then you do an act, something that is honest, and someone will make, hey, that's impressive. You don't see too many honest people in this world. So sadly, the people of the world take advantage of them for being who they are. And that's true. Now, in verse 9, he said, I say to you, make friends for yourselves by means of the mammon of unrighteousness. And when it fails, they may receive you into the eternal dwellings. All right, this is a little difficult to try and comprehend, but let's look at it this way. See, we have jobs in this world to make an income when we can provide for our family. and we can be ready to assist others as needed. This is a principle that Paul taught there in Ephesians. You do a good job, and you'll have to give to those who do not have. And so the Lord is telling us to be good at our jobs and to not be lazy. I mean, do your best. Knowing that many people are wicked in their ways does not mean we can do the same thing. So we have to know that. So we've got to stick with our honesty and our integrity to show Christianity in our lives. And so we must be honest, fair, and industrious to please our masters. Do the best job that we can. I mean, it really speaks up, and people do notice. Folks, this is one of those examples we set, and people do notice. If we claim to be a Christian and we're doing our best to please our bosses, then, I mean, it's going to be evident to others. And usually we will get recognized for the effort we're putting forth. And they may not come out and say it publicly, but down deep they appreciate it. So we do our jobs to the best of our ability and try to do better than all the other employees. You know, Ephesians 6, 5 through 8 speaks of this principle as well. In verse 11, it says, "If therefore you have not been faithful in the use of unrighteous mammon, who will entrust the true riches to you?" All right, now, if we do wrong to other people by causing them financial harm, we know that we could go to jail. I mean, in some cases, that has happened. See, the message is that we must deal with others with honesty and integrity because God sees what we're doing. And so that may not get us a promotion or commendation, but it will most likely impress our bosses enough that they will keep us employed. Because really, you'd much rather have an honest employee than one who is sneaky and conniving. So anyway, verse 13, he said, "No servant can serve two masters, for either hate the one, love the other, or else he will hold to one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon." See, mammon comes from a word which means money, possessions, income, or overall wealth or value. See, the Christian needs to work towards seeking God and gaining a home in heaven. I mean, the people of the world are looking out for their own selves and do not consider God in their plans. And they sometimes think they can hide what they're doing from God. And so this parable is confusing because, yes, we need money. Our families need money. We must work for that money. And we must work in the world for that money. And a lot of times where we get jobs, I mean, they may not be the nicest of people. And if we are entrusted with taking care of money, not only of ourselves, but of others, we better make sure we keep things very, very honest and not embezzle or steal them or misuse them. So we need to remember we are all stewards of God. And once again, have you worked to increase the holdings of the master? Have you done your Christian duty and shared the gospel with others? I mean, there's a lesson there that we constantly repeat and remind you. But folks, you cannot deny that is what our job is as Christians. And if you think you can get through by being a lazy Christian, this lesson here ought to speak to you. I mean, Jesus really said it for the benefit of the Pharisees who trusted in their wealth and their riches and their pride. But it really applies to everybody. So think about these things. And we actually have one more parable coming up that we'll be discussing the next lesson. And so for now, you just have a good day. Think about these things. And Lord willing, we'll be back with another lesson. Bye-bye for now.